contributions of your tax are then made by corporations back to the government.
Okay.
It's a mix of that and also widening of the tax net. So we saw that the slabs had been revised fairly aggressively in the budget speech on the 1st of Feb this year. And it was done in a bid to widen the tax net and involve more and more citizens to be compliant to pay taxes. So it's a mix of both. Now, where the money accrues from more is difficult to arrive at and calculate at this moment. But overall, the growth shows that, yeah, there has been a 11.2% increase in the tax collected, mostly on account of citizens, not as much on account of corporations. And that pretty much shows that, yeah, there has been a 10%, 11% more amount of tax paid. Now, whether this comes on the back of higher salaries or widening of the tax net is for us to get into the details and try and, look at the numbers, drill them down further.
And perhaps we'll get those numbers by the end of this year when the
right.
government finally, in its budget speech, will talk about how many tax returns have been filed. But so far, another important concern is the limited tax base that India has. Only about 6 crore people paying taxes in the country.
Yeah, I mean, that of course is again last year's number. Let's see what that widens to this year. I'm hoping that that number would widen and the burden on a select few paying taxes and funding all measures, all initiatives of the government and sort of, funding all development schemes would become history soon. That number should increase, but what that increase to, again, I mean, it's difficult to speculate.
Okay, we will of course keep bringing you all those details, but good news there for the government, as there's been enough front growth of about 11% in the direct tax collected so far. Remember, it's only been about 2.5 months. We haven't met the 25%, hopefully the 25% target if you were to divide the overall figures by 4 quarters, but the month is yet to end, so hopefully government will be able to recoup whatever it wants as of this quarter. But shifting focus to another story that we're tracking, and that is with respect to NPS. I'm not sure if Krishna is with us, but an interesting, important story for those people who are hoping to get a part of their pension fund back, Karthik, because NPS, now there is a statement, we don't know when that's going to be made possible, but you have the pension fund regulator now coming up saying that they are going to introduce measures to ensure that people are able to withdraw pension by second half.
So, Shweta, up until now, the NPS rules were pretty clear that on retirement at the age of 60, you could withdraw up to 40% of your corpus as lump sum. Right. Now, the pension regulator is proposing, and hopefully by as early as September this year it should be out, that you would be able to withdraw up to 60% of your corpus, and not once. You can put a schedule to it, and you can put a schedule to as many times as you want to withdraw that 60% corpus. But that privilege is available only till the age of 75. So between 60 to 75, 60% of your total pension corpus can be withdrawn, and you can decide as many installments as you like to withdraw that corpus. You want to do it one time, you want to do it annually, half yearly, quarterly, monthly. That flexibility is now given to pension account holders. So it's a significant move, because it's, at the end of the day, it's your money, right? And once you retire, it's a function of what you want to deploy your life savings and your life's pension towards. And it gives that flexibility back in the hands of the retired folk to be able to now put a schedule to what amount of money they need in how many installments. And if there is a capital expenditure, like maybe purchasing a house or renovating, refurbishing an existing property, which requires a huge amount of cash up front, you have the option of withdrawing up to 60% of your pension and deploying it in those assets.
Okay, but
now the rest of it, of course, gets prorated and is paid to you monthly till as long as you live.
Right, but you've got to be 60 years of age, and you've got to attain retirement before availing any benefit from pension.
Of course.
And as we mentioned, I mean, quickly, this is going to be, what we're given to understand, be applicable by second half of the year. So there's a timeline.
That's right. So the timeline looks like it should be notified by the month of September, and thereafter October onwards it should be implemented, and you should be in a position, the retired folks should be in a position to withdraw that lump sum.
Okay, and that is of course good news there for people who are hoping to get some part of their pension back to them after 60 years of age, of course, be able to get as much as 60%. The rest of it would be prorated, which means you will be able to not withdraw essentially, but be able to get it as and when you like. But I want to know if Krishna is with us at this point in time. I don't think he's with us, but Krishna is not with us, so we're going to shift focus to another important story that we're tracking, and that is with respect to cyber frauds, digital frauds. Amit is with us. Amit, it's an important story we're tracking this morning in newspapers. Basically going on to suggest that government would be cracking down on digital frauds that have gone to an all-time high.
Yeah, and cracking down in more ways than one. Now, digital frauds have not just gone up, they have gone up 300% from 2017 when it was around 3,466 cases to 2021 when it was 14,007 cases. Between March and April, they have remained more or less the same at around 300 crores, the amount of frauds. Now, what the government is doing is one, they are planning to basically set up security operation centers to basically take stock and across banks of cybercrime cases. They are planning to set up phishing and wishing simulation exercises.
Okay,
to
that's a very fancy word. What does it mean?
Phishing is basically refers to emails that come to you. Wishing is the calls that come to you, the missed calls, and sometimes they continuous solicitation of basically giving information, taking out information from customers. Then there is now a new focus on cloud security. Most of the information now is in the sense in the last few years has been stored in cloud computing methods. So there is focus on that. There's going to be a review of fraud risk management solutions over time, again and again. That is one of the things they're doing. There's going to be a wider, it was noticed that NBFCs and urban cooperative banks were seeing more cyber frauds. So there's going to be an on-site IT examinations of NBFCs and urban cooperative banks separately. Also, the government is going to be working with the likes of Google and Apple to improve methods of mobile security, because most of the transactions in time with digitization, these are customer end solutions. Customers are doing with their mobile phones and not on teller machines or on ATMs or in the banks themselves. So these are broadly what the government plans to do in the times to come.
Okay. Digital frauds is a more, I think it's more of a reality than any other aspect of life that we have to deal with, any other issue that we have to deal with every other day. And we in fact have tracked it in multiple ways. So from a UPI fraud to a fraud when you get a call to somebody coming at your doorstep, Karthik, which is when it gets all the more real, asking for an OTP and in process withdrawing a lump sum from your bank account. Obviously attempts have to be made, but so far from what we are looking at, there's not been a concerted approach by the government. Every here and there we hear of one company or the other, one bank or the other trying to take some measures to ensure that their customers are safe. But with this, there seems to be some awakening to the massive problem that we're dealing with.
So Shweta, I think you're right. There hasn't been a concerted effort, but there have been these little nuggets of effort that have been visible for the last 1 year or so. So for example, the RBI data that released about a month ago, it clearly suggested that in the last financial year, the total volume as well as value of financial frauds had reduced, bank frauds had reduced drastically. Right. The report also suggested, the numbers in fact also pointed to the fact that the number of such transactions seem to be fairly high when it comes to private banks, whereas the volume seems to be higher in the case of public banks. Now, remember last week TRAI had also come with this notification to telcos that let's deploy artificial intelligence and machine learning to identify patterns in financial frauds and attack those patterns. Once you're able to attack those patterns, it becomes easier to mitigate the whole problem at its core. In addition to that, now what Amit was mentioning, that partnering with the telephone operators, with the software providers, including Apple and Android, Google and Apple in this case, to be able to identify, what are those mysterious links or what are those sources where financial frauds, the fountainhead for those financial frauds. So overall, you're seeing there has been this jigsaw puzzle of financial frauds where little pieces are getting added every now and then. I agree with you. There hasn't been a concerted effort, and I think that needs to be taken up where all these agencies work in tandem, whether it is RBI, whether it is TRAI, whether it is METI, whether it is Ministry of Finance, Law Ministry. All these bodies, nodal agencies, need to work together and have a very clear formulated plan to deal with financial frauds. That hasn't happened yet. I mean, it's easy for a machine to identify a pattern of, let's say, an embedded link which takes you to a phishing sort of a net, right? But in the absence of somebody being able to attack emergence of those patterns, new patterns will come up every day, and it'll be difficult even for a machine to keep learning and keep implementing and keep learning and keep implementing. So that, and second, of course, very clear penal action. I mean, we have seen Jamtara, we have seen Nu, we have seen these hotbeds of financial fraud, and all of them operating at state borders, where jurisdiction ends if you walk 1 kilometer or cycle down 1 kilometer onto the other side of the border. So jurisdiction on financial frauds also needs to be taken up centrally rather than keeping it a state subject. And that is going to enable at least getting after these hubs of financial fraud with more agility and with greater efficiency, and then overall this concerted effort of using technology and using banks and protecting data that leaks out from banking channels, from telecos, from retail outlets, and from all these leakages of data need to be plugged at one end, and then of course technology needs to be the next layer on top, and a centralized jurisdiction to be able to attack these hubs of financial frauds as and when they emerge.
Okay, Krishna is joining us at this point in time. Krishna, good morning to you. I think important suggestions there by Karthik, and some of which I completely agree with. I feel all these agencies are working in silos at the moment. So you have an RBI talking about financial frauds, then you have a METI talking about, the ministry talking about it, then you have TRAI saying we're going to crack down on pesky calls, giving some directions to telecom operators to ensure that there is semblance, there is some sort of relief to people. But working in silos is not going to help the end user. So perhaps need for a concerted effort by all these stakeholders to ensure, or at least signal to people out there, that we are making an attempt to crack down on digital frauds.
Right, we're having this conversation, Shweta, at a time when the Delhi police has just busted the international cybercrime syndicate in association with the FBI and Interpol. 4 people have been arrested. As we have in this conversation, a huge international cybercrime syndicate has been busted in India's national capital, and there have been enough and more warnings about how the number of cybercrimes in this country is only set to go up further, even as we continue to digitize more and more every aspect of our lives and our work. So I completely agree with Karthik when he says that so far you have the Telecom Regulatory Authority, the Telecommunications Department doing what they're doing, and then you have other departments doing what they're doing. You really need a concerted effort to ensure that, because the internet, your mobile, your phone calls, your emails are all interlinked. Your social media, everything is interlinked. And how can you have 5 different departments taking care of 5 different things? You need to have that one cybercrime department that sort of puts its foot into all kinds of technologies possible, including artificial intelligence, which enable these people to commit cybercrimes, these gangs to commit cybercrimes. So in that sense, there is absolutely no doubt that you need to have a central nodal agency, because that agency will also have to coordinate with law enforcement, depending upon where cybercrime is happening, the police, the local administration. So there is enough and more trouble even when you have a central nodal agency, because the cybercrime gets committed in cyberspace. But the people live in a physical space in a particular city or a particular town, and then you need a police from that city or town to go arrest those people. So even when you have a central nodal agency, you have to have enough and more coordination with local law enforcement authorities. So goes without saying that let's begin with a central nodal agency, and then probably train our police force better when it comes to cracking cybercrimes.
Okay, interesting suggestions there. Yes, Amit, you wanted to come in.
No, cybercrimes is bigger here. Just the cyber financial crimes, the number of cases registered with the National Crime Records Bureau in April were 1,76,000, which amounting to 273 crores 1 month. In the month of March, it was 2,25,000. That's how big the problem is. So it's high time that these broad kind of laws are coming to basically take care of it. And there's just cyber financial crime. Cyber crime, intellectual property is a much bigger issue.
Absolutely, but cyber financial crime is more so a reality for each one of us. I think at one point or the other in the last 1 month that we've been discussing this menace, all of us, either us or our family members, have seen some sort of financial cyber crimes happening on a daily basis. I think interesting, important suggestions. I hope government is watching, somebody in the government is watching right now this bulletin. Some very interesting suggestions made by my colleagues here. And Krishna, they're talking about a central nodal agency. If at all that becomes a reality, perhaps there could be some sort of relief for people in days and weeks or months to come ahead. But as of now, all we have is government cracking down on cyber frauds with help of AI, machine learning, and ensuring that there is more compliance for the law that exists. But we're going to move on now to another important story that we're tracking, and that is with respect to M&M, a pioneer in electric vehicles. Mahindra & Mahindra is now of the belief that electric vehicles below 10 lakh rupees are not for them, Karthik. They're saying that they want to focus on this brand value. They want to focus on value it adds by the way of electric vehicles, but not in sub 10 lakh rupee segment, because perhaps it takes a lot more money to make an electric vehicle. They're going to be more expensive than 10 lakh.
Sure. So, Shweta, number one, I think I'm sad to say it puts to rest the kind of speculation that you, Krishna, and I were having in the studio last week when we saw that MG is up for sale and the front runners included JSW among others. And we said, hey, it's a great opportunity for Mahindra & Mahindra to step in. I think somebody there saw our episode and thought that maybe some clarification is required. and yeah, so it's not for us. They're saying very clearly that, it's not a segment that we want to be in. M&M has toyed with the sub 10 lakh rupee electric vehicles in the past. Whether you look at the Reva, which got rebranded as E20 and got sold for a very long time, or the E-Verito, which was actually the Renault Logan, which got an electric makeover and continued to be sold in India for a while. And then I think the only takers Mahindra realized was the government. And thereafter, whatever units were left with Mahindra, they were sold to Blue Smart, which of course is a fully electric fleet of taxis. So for consumers, it has very categorically stated that the sub 10 lakh rupee price band is not something it wants to enter. Rather, it does focus on electric vehicles, but electric SUVs. And these SUVs, of course, the starting price right now for Mahindra SUVs is about 13 lakh rupees. The E versions added are obviously going to be far more expensive. But it does have a slew of about 5 electric SUVs lined up for launch between next year 2024 and 2026. So there are going to be 5 electric SUVs being launched, being introduced by M&M in the Indian market, but none of them are going to be in the sub 10 lakh rupee bracket. And that is a game that I think it is leaving to Tata to continue playing with the Tata Tiago, how do you pronounce it? Tiago, as well as MG Comet. So whoever the taker of MG becomes, a nice, beautiful two-car, very comedy-looking vehicle. But yeah, very clearly that's not the segment that Mahindra & Mahindra wants to get into.
Okay, so everything was in the realm of speculation, Krishna, up until last week, where M&M along with JSW could have been a front runner to get majority stake in MG Motors. But MG Motors has a wonderful SUV to offer, which is like a 2-door small car, and it's MG Comet. But Mahindra, they're clarifying, we're not going to be a taker for 10 lakh rupee or sub 10 lakh rupee variant of an EV. So perhaps hinting also at the fact that we are not hoping to acquire MG?
I don't want to over-intellectualize this, Shweta. Clearly, when they say that, it means that they're not interested in MG. But my question here is, I have other doubts. when we spoke about Mahindra and Mahindra and MG being a great fit for M&M, it wasn't just about the Comet. We're talking about the premium SUVs that the MG has in its portfolio, which could be a great addition to the value SUVs that M&M has in its SUVs and MUVs that M&M has in its portfolio. The idea was that it would be a great complementary set of products to what M&M has in its portfolio. The Comet being an addition, of course, you can't think about the future of cars without thinking about what kind of EV brands that you have in your stable. And the Comet, in the sense, is relatively new, untested, so to speak. Whereas Mahindra's own EV cars have gone through many testings, many ups and downs. And as Karthik was telling us, a story of Mahindra's electric vehicles foray. So in that sense, Mahindra making it clear, like even as they continue, having their churn in their own EV foray, they are not interested in the Comet. This will sound very well to all those people who hated the way the Comet looked, including Karthik, because it looked like a little box. It didn't look like a car, and also it's nearly 10 lakhs. Why would you pay 10 lakhs for a box in which at best two people can sit comfortably? But and also it doesn't stylize the stylization of the features and etc. Was not the most attractive for a lot of people. Those people will be definitely happy, especially if they're looking to join the M&M stable. Then they'll be happy that M&M is staying away from MG. But I'm going to wait and watch on this one, Shweta, because we'll have to see how this entire sale goes about. Is it going to be split into 2-3 parts? Will MG's premium SUVs go to somebody, whereas something else goes to somebody? I really don't know. I mean, at this stage, it's all pure guess game. So for now, one thing is very clear. Mahindra and Mahindra does not want to have an EV which is less than 10 lakh rupees in the market. That is very clear. And to me, even that is not rocket science, because the Tata Nexon EV, one of the best-selling eSUVs, is not sub 10 lakhs. Nothing that sells well in the EV category is the sub 10 lakh range. So Mahindra making a very logical call in that sense.
Okay, and this brings me to the KUV electric series that Mahindra was expected to come out with, but it shelved plans, clearly hinting at the fact that that's not the segment we are eyeing. And now they have pivoted clearly, and they've clarified so far that we are not going to be eyeing a under 10 lakh rupees segment for EVs. We're only going to be making high-end EVs. At this juncture, what does Mahindra has to offer? There are, of course, new cars in pipeline, but as far as EVs is concerned, for the benefit of our viewers somebody who's hoping to buy an electric vehicle which is from Mahindra and Mahindra's stable, what does it have to offer?
Nothing. So the eKUV got shelved. The Virito is not in circulation anymore. I mean, it got discontinued a long time ago, and even the Reva E2O does not exist for sale in the market right now. So at present, M&M has got nothing in the electric category. Okay. Though if you remember, it did make a pivot from diesel to petrol in the XUV 300, and if I'm not mistaken, maybe 1 or 2 other variants also. But as of now, in the electric category, nothing. But 2024 to 2026 is where 5 electric vehicles are likely to be launched. But I think to give an analogy here, it's a business decision, which Krishna also mentioned, and I agree that it's a clear business decision that any good value car in the electric category is not going to be sub 10 lakh, right? So you will at best get a box like the MG Comet, right? Or a golf cart, as Amit just mentioned when Krishna was speaking, that it's almost like a golf cart, which MG will not be very happy to hear. But the fact of the matter is that Mahindra is also playing a brand imagery game here. So it wants to position itself as a premium SUV maker and not a budget car maker. So I think that differentiation is coming out very, very clearly. Apple, for example, will release a small-sized phone, let's say the Apple iPhone SE or the mini variants of 12, 13, maybe iPhone 14 also. But they're not going to be priced any cheaper, marginally cheaper, but they are not going to compete with the Android market. They are still going to be premium phones. So I think the statement from Mahindra and Mahindra is also very clear that we will introduce electric SUVs, but we will play the brand imagery game, we will play the premium game, and we are not going to be a vehicle that you can just go buy at under 10 lakh rupees and boast the Mahindra brand on. But
we're looking at a market like India, where I understand that a Tata Nano failed because it was extremely cheap, and it is perhaps a case study for many MBA schools at this point in time. But with Maruti being the at the top of the game with the number of passenger vehicles it sells in India, having a 60% share. Do you think at this juncture for a market like India or for Indian buyers who would prefer a small, relatively unsafe, a small, cheaper car with all the elements that it can get for under 10 lakh, would they prefer that versus preferring a 15-20 lakh rupee electric vehicle car? I'm sure people who can afford will pay up, but majority of us would like to go for a car that gives you all the advanced features in way cheaper, in lesser money.
So I think different folks, different strokes. You can't really pinpoint as to what a person would buy or should buy. It's a function of affordability to begin with. And I think that is the prime motive and the prime factor that one looks at when going ahead and making a purchase of something as high value as a car. So those who can afford a bigger car, we have seen the compact SUV segment explode in India. We haven't seen those numbers, and this comes in the aftermath of the COVID lockdown. That you are looking at personal mobility, but you're not compromising on style, you're not compromising on features, you're not compromising on comfort. But it still seems to be a fairly urban metro phenomena. Those who need a vehicle to do the job of a vehicle primarily, and where affordability becomes a great question mark, I think the small car market is going to continue to thrive as well. So India is fortunately a fairly diverse market where the population being split fairly in terms of needs and wants. So the needs will continue to go for a small vehicle which does the job of transportation, whereas the wants will progress to something that gives them more happiness, and transportation is just one of the features that the car offers.
Absolutely, wonderfully put. Needs and wants, but needs can be satisfied, wants can be enormous, may never be able to satisfy wants. But interesting proposition there from Mahindra and Mahindra, not looking to expand or continue in the sub 10 lakh rupee segment for EVs. It wants to position itself as a high-end car that is perhaps more expensive and better than what is in the market right now. But we're going to move on to another important story that we're tracking, and that is coming from G20. The G20 tourism working groups concluding, and the fourth meeting, Krishna, is going to be in Goa. It will start today.
Right. It is the culmination of 4 rounds of meeting, and it's going to be over 4 days, June 19th, beg your pardon, to June 22nd. The delegates started arriving yesterday. They were given a rousing reception in Goa as well. The whole of Goa has turned festive for this G20 tourism working committee working group meeting. And essentially, they have arrived at 5 priorities, Shweta, which will be for global tourism. And this entire working group meeting, tourism working group TWG of the G20, it is meant to identify priorities for global tourism. And in a sense, it's called the Goa Roadmap for Global Tourism. So the Roadmap for Global Tourism is being created in Goa by the G20 countries. That's what's happening from June 19th to 22nd. And all these events, all the discussions are going to be held indoors because of the monsoons that are threatening to ruin all kinds of events outdoors. So hence, to keep it safe, all the discussions are going to be held indoors, and Goa is geared up for it. And 5 priorities, as I've been telling you, Shweta. One is green tourism. That is definitely a priority as far as global tourism is concerned. And the G20 tourism working group wants to focus on green tourism, sustainable tourism, very important. And also other things. About 5 priorities is what they have arrived at, and these will be discussed and thrashed out, and the final outcome we'll know on the 22nd. But in a sense, this is the last of the working group meetings for the G20 belt. India is the G20 chair, and so many amongst the many issues that India is solving for the world as G20 chair, enabling solutions for so many global issues. One of them is certainly tourism, and what better place than Goa in India to have that discussion on how to create this sustainable tourism going forward, Shweta.
All right, Krishna, we will of course keep bringing you all the updates. Remember, the meeting starts today, will continue till 22nd of June. We've got 3 more days. We will track all those updates coming in from Goa. But shifting focus to another interesting, important story that we're tracking, and that is with respect to mangoes. The export of mangoes, after being very, very expensive and sometimes as costly, some of these brands as costly as that of gold, the value of gold, we're now given to understand that mango exports to US has doubled. Amit, why exactly is that? What is leading to this doubling of exports?
There are 2 basic reasons. One is decline in freight rates.
Okay.
And because of that, the freshness and the aroma of Indian mangoes is maintained against South American mangoes, which are competing with Indian mangoes in US because they travel by road. So that is one reason. 2, there is a new facility in Ahmedabad for irradiation, which is basically a method of killing bacteria and retarding the deterioration of mangoes. Okay. So these are the 2 basic reasons why the increase in exports to the US, and we are competing better in the US markets. So it's gone up from 891 tons in 2022 to 2,000 tons, it's more than double.
Okay, and specific varieties of mangoes there, Alfonso's, Kesar, and the Banganpalli mangoes, a specific variety of mangoes, not all mangoes.
And they are selling, and Alfonso and Kesar are selling at a premium, so it's 738 rupees per kg in the US, $9, okay. And Kesar is selling at 574. I think in India, it's Alfonso sells for around 250 to 300 rupees a kg. Okay. So that's the...
So Indian mangoes, they're making news, and this comes on the back of what we were tracking on Friday, Karthik, and that is some mango varieties are so expensive that they are selling at the same price as gold. Perhaps talking about the high cultivation value of mangoes and the mango brands that we are selling out of India.
Yeah, so there's a reason why mangoes are called the king of fruits, and hence the crown being as valuable as gold is great. And when you really look at the crown jewels of mangoes produced in India, you actually have the Alfonsos and the Banganpallis. And I remember a time not too long ago when friends coming over to Delhi from Bombay or Pune would carry crates, boxes in fact of Alfonso mangoes because they were not available in Delhi. Right. In fact, anytime you would come back at from any of these cities and you're waiting for your luggage at the conveyor belt, you would actually get tempted seeing these cartons of Alfonso mangoes doing the rounds on the carousel, tempted to really pick them up if you did not carry them. But then thereafter you saw that even the retailers, the organized retailers in Delhi NCR started stocking up these Alfonso mangoes. So was the case with the Banganpalli, a variety that was produced primarily in Andhra Pradesh, Telangana region. Hyderabad used to be one of the biggest retail markets, and these varieties of fruit also started making inroads into India. And I was surprised this year that out at a stall to pick up mangoes, I saw that there wasn't enough variety of Banganpallis or Alfonsos available. Alfonsos, of course, you never get at the hawkers. You got them at the stalls. You got them only in organized retail, but Banganpalli had made a very clear entry into North India, and this year it wasn't available, barring maybe one instance where I was able to pick up about 5 pieces or so, and 5 pieces were incidentally about 3 kgs. It's that big a mango, right? And juicy and delicious, no doubt. And I'm salivating as I'm saying this, but the fact of the matter is, I know who ate my mangoes. My mangoes did not reach me, and of course they fetched a better price outside, and that's where
journalist counterpart in US ate your mangoes, Karthik. So very, very expensive, highly expensive mangoes. They're being sold at a premium, and as Amit pointed out, you have an Alfonso selling at $9 a kg, and you have the Kesar variety selling at $7 a kg. Extremely very expensive.
So, Shweta, one little anecdote. I remember early 2000s, I was visiting the under construction Jamnagar refinery owned by Reliance. And that's where, after our tour of the upcoming refinery was through, we were taken to these mango groves, and these were just samplings at that time, not full-fledged trees. And that entire couple of 100 acres of land being cultivated for the best variety of mangoes, not for domestic consumption, but for exports specifically to the US. I'm talking about at least 15, 16 years ago, where we saw part of the Reliance story back then. Within the Reliance compound in Jamnagar, Gujarat, this mango groves really being cultivated for the export market. So I think, yeah, the sweetness of the fruit is for the US
reaching
to taste right now.
Absolutely. And reaching not just the US, but also South Korea, also reaching United Kingdom. So US and UK, of course.
We are competing.
And we are competing.
We are competing. It's not just because they are cheaper. They are not cheaper. They are selling at a premium. And we are basically, because they are fresher, and we are using new techniques to keep them fresh, to keep their aroma intact.
Of course, so we're becoming number one, maybe one of the major exporters of mangoes at this point in time, all thanks to our mango farmers. I think good news for them. Mangoes selling at a premium, both Kesar, Alfonso and Banganpalli varieties available in the US, UK and South Korean markets. We are exporting more and more mangoes as we speak. So if you're wondering who's eating your mangoes, it's got to be somebody sitting in or any of these countries for that matter. But with that, gentlemen, it's a wrap on this edition of Newsline Plus. Thanks very much for watching.
In January 2023, Gautam Adani was the world's third richest person. Bloomberg had recently announced that he'd made more billions than anyone else on the planet in 2022. He was the darling of investors. Then, disaster struck. On January 24th, a US-based short seller alleged share price manipulation and accounting fraud. Adani's stock prices crashed. In less than 10 days, his companies lost over 8 lakh crore rupees in valuation. Adani is now the world's 30th richest person. He acted swiftly, though, to contain the damage. And yet, he's holding on to the Dharavi redevelopment project. He will invest 25,000 crore rupees to redevelop Asia's largest slum. But why?
Somebody like an Adani would definitely love to take it up and complete it.
Dharavi will be Mumbai's biggest commercial hub after its redevelopment. Adani will be the biggest commercial landholder.
Dharavi could generate 6 lakh crore rupees a year once it is redeveloped. This can serve Adani in two ways, commercial and social. Gautam Adani could turn savior and savvy investor, a slumdog billionaire, if you will.
I would want to highlight the importance of Dharavi as a social commitment. Remodeling it and bringing urbanization back to this property is something which will have a huge social upside, social equity to be generated. The other side is the commercial angle. Let's identify that this is a very large property, absolutely centrally located in the city of Mumbai, very close to the biggest business district of the country called Bandra Complex.
Dharavi came into focus because there was a plan to release the vast land which is connected by maybe 3 to 4 railway stations, which is a very unique situation.
It constitutes of 10 lakhs dwellers over there. And, it's a very thriving hub for small scale industry. Approximately, close to 7,000 to 800,000 crores of trade is done on an annual basis. It's hub for, small scale industries, especially leather. And it provides employment to a huge number of population who are kind of residents of Dharavi itself.
Dharavi is sandwiched between the eastern suburb of Sion and the western suburb of Mahindra. Mumbai's most successful reclaimed business district, the Bandra Complex, is just 2 kilometers from Dharavi. The international airport, also managed by Adani, is 12 kilometers from Dharavi. While BKC is seen as upscale and pricey, Dharavi could be marketed as its more affordable cousin next door, but just as close to the airport. A win-win proposition for Gautam Adani.
In Bandra-Kurla complex, a few of the very high-end properties are sold for 100,000 rupees a square feet in that range. So when you're going to develop Dharavi and you will use the free sale component to bring in real estate into the industry, you will obviously not bring everything in the super high or uber luxury range only. You will have to create a mix of mid-end to high-end housing, mid to high-end office complexes, etc.
Once the government orders are issued, we'll go ahead and give the letter of award. Then we are going to sign an MOU, and the most important step will be the formation of an SPV, where government is a party. In 17 years, if you ask me, Dharavi will look like the rest of Mumbai, but with its own identity kept intact.
It's a complex project. It's a large project. It's a project where you have to dismantle our economy. So if you are redeveloping the whole livelihood, whole city, then there would be impact on the livelihood of the people, and there would be a resistance from the people.
In the Union Territory of Chandigarh, 10 lakh people stay in 114 square kilometers. In Dharavi, an equal number lives in just 2.1 square kilometers. And the approximate cost of Dharavi's land is 1.7 lakh crore.
State GST for 5 years during construction, which was never happened earlier. And this is the first time, thanks to the efforts by Honorable Deputy Chief Minister, Sri Devendraji Fadnavis, we got the railway land, of course. But he also wanted that the local industry should thrive. So he proposed, and the cabinet, of course, approved, and the GR has been issued that